All right, I went to techbash.com. Intro to Web Components with John Riviello and Chris Lorenzo. Now, Chris has been he's been to TechBash for a couple years. He's kind of a friend of the conference. He's a really great presenter. Their full day workshop, which I attended, was Intro to Web Components. Um, Now, when I first saw this, I said, "Well, I've given up on web components. It's done, But whatever. I really respect Chris. I didn't know John before this, but now I really respect John too. And they gave a great show. They kind of went through and talked about web components. They talked about how it used to be kind of a joke, and now it's not so much, right? It's the technologies they've settled down a little bit. They're very widely supported. They're very available, and they're pretty easy to use. So I went through the full day workshop with Chris and John that they gave on. I went through all their examples and everything. And today I want to just kind of do it myself. For you guys, we'll kind of walk through it together. Please feel free to jump in the chat, ping me, say hello. If you're not following me already, give me a follow. I would love it. I've got my, where is it? Over here, right there. I'm looking for 10 followers, my first 10 followers. It's a brand new stream, so I'm looking for more followers. Please give me a follow. See if we can hit that goal. I would love to have you. I would love to have you as a follower and join the stream. Feel free to jump in the chat room and send me any comments or questions or anything that you have while I'm going. I'll be taking a look at it. But without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into it. So let's go. I'm going to switch to my monitor, and here's that TechBash page I was looking at. Intro to Web Components. So this was TechBash 2019, Intro to Web Components. Talks about web components, the latest from Google Polymer and everything. So that was the last time I looked at web components, probably a couple years. The latest or kind of the best answer was Polymer. They say, let's say Polymer web components, right? You Googled web components and you basically got led to Polymer. Polymer was web components for all intents and purposes, just because of the fragmentation and everything of web components. They just weren't ready yet, and Polymer was really the only option, pretty much. As I looked into it, Polymer is, and it's a framework, it's a library, and you're downloading these frameworks and things, and I just wondered why I would use Polymer, right? If I would learn Polymer and learn all the APIs and everything for Polymer, it's just another framework. Why wouldn't I just use the frameworks that I was already using, like React and Angular? And so that's where I just kind of gave up and moved on. But what Chris and John were talking about let's first talk about, let's look at web components. Go to my favorite site, MDN, Mozilla Development Network. So today I just want to kind of walk through basically this page, right? The web components page on MDN. So forget about Polymer, forget about any libraries or anything for now, and let's just look at what is actually available in the browsers today. So what are some concepts? We got a couple basic concepts that web components are made of: custom elements, shadow DOM, and HTML templates, which are templates and slots. So I want to look at all of these things. I'm not sure I'll get to templates today because it's a little bit more advanced than maybe I want to get into. But all of these have kind of standard APIs that are available in pretty much all the browsers today. So you define your custom element with the define method. You can attach shadow to your element to use the shadow DOM. For those of you who aren't familiar with the shadow DOM, it's a shadow of the real DOM, right? It's something that you can render to and you can modify the elements without actually updating the main DOM that people are that your users are actually seeing. And the reason that that's really huge is updating the DOM and reevaluating CSS rules and layout and everything is really, really expensive. It's like the most expensive thing that you can do in web development. And so avoiding doing that is really it's a really great thing. And so basically Shadow DOM is something that is in memory, and when it kind of re-renders and reevaluates, it does it all in memory, so it's not it's not so expensive. And then the browser kind of figures out, well, this changed over here in the shadow DOM, so I need to update the real DOM, right? So you have like that diff that actually gets applied to the real DOM. So that's really cool. So I'm basically just going to run through some of these tutorials. And well, let's just get started here. We'll start by using custom elements. So what I'm looking through, I'm scrolling around. I'm looking for the API first and foremost. So basically, just to kind of real quickly, this is a custom element, right? So a custom element, you define it, you give it a name, and the spec says that you need to have a dash in your name. And so that's to avoid any conflicts with any existing element names. So like div, p, a, tag for anchor, right? All of those regular elements, custom elements are must have dashes. They must be prefixed with something. And then you just build a class, right? You build a class that extends from HTML element, or in this example, it's extending from the p, the paragraph element. And then that class can have, they're already kind of mentioning them here, that class can have some custom methods. Where are those lifecycle callbacks? Right, so inside of that class, these are the methods that are available to you to kind of get into some of that life cycle. So you get when the component is first kind of mounted and connected into the DOM, this method gets called. When it's disconnected, this one gets called. Adopted, invoked each time the custom element is moved to a new document. Not sure when that really happens, but cool. And then when your attributes get changed. So you can define custom attributes and everything and use them. So that's kind of the high level. So let's dig in and let's make one. So let's see. Let me bring up, I'm going to start by bringing up that application that I've been working on. Let's see. I'm going to say my contacts application. So why did it open another screen? This is my contacts application. For those of you who haven't seen it, let me run it real quick. I'll run the server and the client. So I've got a local server that just kind of provides contact information. It's an Express server. It's basically just a simple API, or a web API. And then I got my React front end. So this is what the application looks like. You can click on one, you can load the details, you can search, right? So that's the application. So I'm gonna start by turning this into a web component. I'll start with this one, right? Because this one, if we look at, let me put this to the side here. Sorry. Get my window layout. I will get better at this, I promise. Let's see. All right. And how can I do this? There we go. I don't know why that's so hard. All right. Anyway, look at that. Super responsive, right? So this is my application. These are my components for this application. Let's look at the contact details. So right now, this is the contact details that we have. So that is this component over here. And it's in React. I got like a couple of custom components here, loading, stretchbox, things like that. So obviously I'm not going to use those right off the bat. But in here, it's very, very simple, right? I take that contact object and I render it. Right? There's no clicking, there's no interaction, there's no input into text fields or anything like that. I'm just rendering it. So I think this is a perfect example or a perfect thing to start with to create a web component. So let me just start by, I'm not really sure where to start. I'll just put contact details web component WC, and I'm gonna make it a TypeScript file because I love TypeScript, but I've never done this before. Because this is in my React application, I'm going to try and import this as TypeScript. But I think you can forget about all that for now. So we'll start by, I don't need to like import anything, right? I don't have any libraries or anything. Like normally if this was a React component, I would start by saying import React from React, right? I don't need to do any of that because it's all in the browser. And by in the browser, I mean all modern browsers today have all this stuff. We can look up. Here we go. Let's say, can I use? Let's see. We're looking at custom elements right now, right? Custom elements v1. It's been in there since what? Since Edge 19, Edge 76, the latest Edge. IE 11, you're out of luck. There are polyfills, right? So, but if you have to support IE, I feel sorry for you, or Edge, I feel sorry for you. There are polyfills. I'm not going to get into that because I don't actually have to support this. But if you need to support it, there are definitely polyfills. So everything that I'm going to do will work even in Edge and IE, I think. I don't know. But anyway, Firefox, Chrome, Safari, Opera, they all support what I'm going to do. They have autonomous custom elements and all this. There's some caveats here when you get into Safari and stuff. But that's kind of edge cases and more advanced parts of the API. The basic APIs are certainly supported. So to start out here, I don't need to copy it. So we'll say custom elements, right? It's right there in the API. Define, let's say contacts list, contact details, and then the class contact details. TypeScript's yelling at me because this doesn't exist. So let's make it exist. So now I'll say contact details, make a class. Why is it yelling at me? Oh, well, because it's a module. Yeah. I guess I'll export that, even though I don't really think I have to, but that's fine. When I say I don't have to because I'm just using it here. I'm registering it globally here. So all I need to do now in order to use this is bring it in somewhere, bring it in like in my app or even my index, right? I can just say import components, contact details, WC, right? So just by importing that, it's going to get transpiled, so it'll get included in my transpile. It'll get transpiled. It'll get quote unquote executed, right? It'll get evaluated, which that will call this global method and will register this globally. So now if I save all this, then it should be available. And now I'm going to skip the constructor. No, I'm not going to skip the constructor. I didn't extend. So I need to extends HTML element. And I'll make a constructor. The first thing I'm going to do, you don't get a shadow root by default in your components. So the first thing I'm going to do is attach shadow. You have to set a mode. I'm not entirely sure what this is yet. I haven't looked at that. I'm not sure I want to get into that right now, but I've just seen you always use mode.open is what I've heard. I don't know why, quite frankly, and I'm gonna have to figure that out at some point. But for now, I'll just do that. So now I have a shadow DOM, and now I think I referenced the shadow DOM by the shadow root, right? So in other words, whenever I use this component, it is an element, right? It's an HTML element. So just like if you use jQuery or whatever to get a reference to an element, you can say .enter HTML, you can say .get attributes, right? This is the same API that you're used to using for interacting with HTML elements. But now we have this additional thing called the shadow root, which is a shadow element inside. Same thing, right? So you can still say enter HTML and stuff, but now you're interacting with the shadow root rather than the actual component itself. And so now when I say enter HTML equals, let's just say hello world, since this is hello world. I'll set that, and then the the browser will figure out that, oh, I've set the inner HTML. What do I need to do in order to actually make the real HTML in the actual mounted DOM match this, and it will just kind of render it for me. So with all this in place, I think I can just go to, I'm going to jump to my index HTML, right? So regular old HTML, I'm just going to throw this up here. I think I can just say contact details. Just use it as a regular. Like I'm completely outside of my React application right now. Now I didn't practice this demo before coming online here. I'm literally just kind of learning live. But there it is, right? So obviously the first time the page renders before I load anything, the browser doesn't know what this tag is, and all the way back to IE5, IE6, if you have a bad tag, it just kind of ignores it. So that's fine. You're not going to get any errors or whatever. But once this code loads and it finds all of these things, it goes back and finds them all and then renders them, executes this code, right? And so now I've done hello world. I can make it strong. I can emphasize it, right? Whoops, that's backwards. Worked anyway. See? So I can start styling it. I can even in this right in here, I can have well, I'm going to want to use a string template there since I'm doing multiple lines. I can say style. And I don't know how you reference this. But just for now, let's just say span, put this in a span so I can reference it. Red, right? So, but what happened here? Look, I have a bunch of other spans here. I can even be a little more general. Div, right? I made my color red. I made the text color and all my divs. I can even say body. I think I can say body. No, I can't say body. There is a target for the actual kind of root element that we're in, and I'm not sure what it is. We can figure that out later. But here I've said that make the color of the text color of all my divs red. And I have this in a div, and so this is red. But I have plenty of other divs in here. This is a div, this is a div, everything's a div. It doesn't affect all of them, right? So that's kind of a benefit of the custom element and the shadow root in particular, is that it's all isolated to that individual component. So you can import these, you can use these styles. I can even import, now again, I'm doing this on the fly. I haven't done it. I don't know what I'm doing. I haven't done it. But I've seen online that I could do even a regular, let's see, contact details. This thing doesn't exist, so this isn't actually going to work. This is really just kind of pseudocode. I can even do this, right, and link in style sheets. And bring in style sheets, and they will just apply just to this component. So, it's the same as putting an inline style in here. So that's all pretty cool. So now, let's see. I'm just going to go back here, and I'm just going to copy all this. I'm just going to copy this whole thing just to get started. And I'll paste this in. So it's giving me a couple errors just because my outer thing is a string template, right? This whole thing is based on a string template, and I actually have another string template in here. I'm just going to remove that for now, just break that for now. So if I save this, cool. So now I see all of my code, right? So I just copied and pasted some React code, which has replacement things like this. Obviously, it's not going to work, and it just renders it out as text, right? But it's awesome because it's working in regards to actually rendering. It's rendering this anchor tag, right? It's not rendering it right. It's not correct, but it is rendering it. So that's pretty cool. So I've created a custom tag, a custom element that I can use anywhere, including outside of my React application. So now let me bring it inside of my React application. So let me go to, I'm going to close this contact details. I'm going to go to my page, the contacts page where I actually use this. So this is my React component, contact details. I'm going to go and use this component. Contact details does not exist. Oh yeah, okay. So here, I don't know how to use this in React. Okay. Using web components or using custom elements in React. TypeScript is really what I'm facing here. TSX rejects custom elements. Okay, so this is a TypeScript problem, right? So property contact details does not exist on type JSX intrinsic elements. So if we go to intrinsic elements, can we get to that? How do we get to that? JSX intrinsic elements. Well, let me see. If we, my answer is actually probably in this page here somewhere. If I just say a div, the div is a class that is defined on intrinsic elements here. So I just did an F12 to jump into it. So this is in React, right? So React has intrinsic elements, and React has defined a React component for all of these intrinsic elements, right? Canvas, dialog, the H tags, the header tags, H1, H2, H3, HR, HTML. All of the standard HTML tags that you know and love have been defined here. And this error is TypeScript saying that's I've never heard of this. The fact that it has a dash in it is going to make it even more interesting. Let me see if I can fix this just using my React knowledge. Let's say custom components.d.ts. So I'm going to try real quick. There's a little bit of a rabbit hole, but I'm going to try real quick. I'm going to make my own declaration, and I am going to import this and extend it. There's a little TypeScript magic here. It really has nothing to do with web components, but okay, declare namespace React. I think I can import React from React, and then I can declare, how do I do this? TypeScript extend interface. From external module. There we go. Cool. Let's see. Yeah, this is what I was looking to do. So import the module, and then overwrite it or extend it. And so let's see. So this is, where is intrinsic elements? Where was it? Intrinsic elements. Whoa, 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 whoa. All right, it's under JSX. Oh, it's under JSX. Oof. It's going to be rough. I really want to declare module JSX intrinsic elements. I'm sorry, I'm just trying to find it again. Div, okay, go up here. All right, intrinsic elements. So under the namespace, JSX, intrinsic elements. intrinsic elements, contacts, contact details. Let's just call it any for right now. Let's see if that makes the error go away. If it doesn't, I give up for right now. All right, it doesn't. It doesn't. Yeah. Okay, let's save all that. Yeah, it doesn't. Okay, let's go back to this. Maybe the answer is here. Hey, look at that. Isn't that what I was doing already? Maybe I didn't need to do global after all. Declare module intrinsic elements. My custom element class. Oh, that's cool. I can even get full. Yes, no, 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 not working. What if I reload TypeScript? Oh, I didn't need to reload the window, just TypeScript, but that's fine. How about declare module JSX? Get rid of this, and let me actually bring this into my TypeScript. Let's see if this helps. What if I import contact details from components contact details WC? So this would just be, let me get rid of that. So this would just be getting the class. It's not actually, I'm not going to use it. I was hoping that in just bringing that in, importing that file in would actually kind of declare this module, bring that module in, but that is not working either. I'm going to do this for like 2 more seconds, and if it doesn't work, then I'm going to move on. Because this should work. Not sure why it's not. Maybe because TypeScript complains if React. Yeah, okay. Does not start with a capital letter. Yeah. Okay. So what if I did this? It's not going to work, but let's see. Yeah, all right. Never mind. I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm going to back out. I'm actually just going to I'll just comment that out since it's not doing anything. Okay, so how do I get this in React? That's the question. So I've used it. I can use it in HTML. That's obvious. So right now I'm having a problem where, first of all, I've got 2 problems. Right? I've got the TypeScript problem that TypeScript doesn't know anything about this, which is why I was trying to do all this mess. I've also got the second problem that once I fix the TypeScript problem, React is probably going to be upset about it as well, because it has a lowercase name, which is that's easier to figure out. Not sure how to fix either of those problems except to kids, don't ever try this at home. Don't ever do a TS ignore. But I don't know how to actually fix it, so let's see. Is this going to work, or is it still going to fail? Let's see, it's yelling at me that, oh, my whole app died? That's weird. Or am I running it over here? No. Oh, when I reloaded the window, everything died. Yeah, so I got to restart my API server and the the client as well. Okay. 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 So that's cool, I guess. Um, this is getting rendered, which kind of sucks. I wonder, can I do a comment to do TS ignore? How do you do a TS ignore in an actual... well, I can Google that. Let's see. TS ignore in JSX. Let's see. Is this open? This is a PR. This is a request. Yeah, this all actually has happened in the past couple of months. Looks like it's not actually a feature that's implemented, but it should be what I just tried to do, which didn't work. Right? Oh, okay. Well, that's fine. We're just going to have JS ignore in there for now, but at least we can continue to move on. Okay, so it is rendering, right? It is rendering with without any of my CSS that I've done, so I can change that. So if I go back here, the class name is contact details. So let's look at this. We can inspect the DOM. So here's my shadow root, right? So this is what's actually been rendered, right? We have contact details is my component, and then within the shadow root we have class name, contact details, and everything. So now when this was when this was rendering before, my class name, contact details was getting formatted by this CSS, right? That's how it was getting formatted before. But now that it's in a shadow root, this CSS doesn't apply. So the shadow root kind of goes both ways. It protects the stuff in the shadow root from being styled from external style sheets, and any styles defined in the shadow root will not be defined or applied to external ones. So I should just be able to pop this in here. So let's see what that does. So that may or may not have worked because I've got CSS grid. So the reason it's coming down here is because my CSS grid isn't being applied. So let me do this just for now. Class name equals contacts details. What was that? Contact details? Contact details, yeah. Contact details. Wrap that in a div. So we get the proper layout. Good. So now the layout's over there, so that's cool. And now what happens if I delete this? So now this is styling everything in there, which is now internal. So I should be able to remove that, come back here, remove this one, because this is just for the actual container out here now, right? So now if I go in here, and I save this, you can see it's re-rendering. And now we can see it's working because I do have some styling, right? It's still rendering just that the raw content, because I haven't actually replaced anything yet. I haven't done anything dynamic. But we have I can actually get rid of this right now. Our styles become simpler when we're in the shadow DOM, because I don't need to do any of that modular scoping, right? I don't need to say anything inside of contact details. In fact, I can just delete that at this point. And I can just say, hey, all of my image tags, right? Or my avatar, my display name, it's all kind of in this scope. So I don't need to worry about scoping it to this component or this context details style or something like that, class name. And I can tell that it's working because this is bolded, right? Where is that happening? Oh, no, that's an H3, so that's going to be bolded. How can I prove that this is working? Let's see. Avatar is floating right. The display name is align center and text bottom. Let's see what styles are being applied here. H3. So it's not working. It's not actually working. It doesn't look like. What if I change this to H3? There we go. Cool. So forget about the class names. We'll just use these real quick. There we go. Cool. So there we are, right? We still got that ugly, stupid TS ignore, but whatever. We're not going to get rid of that in this session, probably, unfortunately. But there we go, right? We've got a styled component. And so now the only thing that's left is to actually pass that contact in. So how do we do it in React? We say contact equals contact. Select store.contact, right? Store.selected contact is that. So that's my attribute. Now, I don't think this is going to work, quite frankly. But we'll try it out. Let's see. So we have contact, and in order to get an attribute, you just make a setter, I believe. You make a property. So I'm going to say contact. And since this is TypeScript, I'm actually going to say it's of type contact, right? So I've got full IntelliSense and everything that's given to me by TypeScript. And I make that a property. And so now, how do I render this? Let's say now I'm just learning. I don't know if any of this is right or best practices or what, right? So don't go away from here saying that I'm giving you a master class in web components. I'm just figuring it out just like you are, right? But to me, this makes sense. And I'll go and figure out how to actually do it right in a little bit. Whoops. So basically, I'm just doing a little bit of refactoring here, right? So I'm taking what was in here, the styles that were, the markup that I was rendering kind of inline right here, and I just refactored it to a method, right? So if I save this, it should do exactly the same thing. Yeah, so it's still rendering. But the reason I did that is because now in here I can kind of access. I'm outside of the constructor. Oh, shoot. No, I want to do this. I want to do the whole thing. Move this whole thing. This dot render. Move the whole thing. Sorry. Move the whole setter. There we go. That's what, oops. Okay. All right, so re-render, right? So now I'm going to listen to one of those lifecycle events. So remember the lifecycle events that we saw over here somewhere? Attribute changed callback. Old value, new value. We paste that in here. And now I'll just say this dot render. So I'm gonna re-render everything in the shadow DOM. So this is going to get called anytime any of the attributes change. So this is a very dumb component. I'm not being very optimized right now. And if I save this, it's definitely not going to work. Yeah, for a couple different reasons. Well, first of all, now that I have this, I can go in here and I can say, get me the contact. contact equals this dot contact. So get the current contact. And I can go through and replace all of these with string interpolation. So this is just regular string interpolation, right? Like this is JavaScript. This is raw JavaScript. So inside of this template string that I have out here, you can just render, you can evaluate things and render them right in line and just making one giant string. So that's all I'm doing is making one giant string. So if I save this, yeah, it's going to blow up. It's going to blow up for a couple of reasons. Cannot read property display name of undefined. That's because I'm rendering as soon as I load before I have the attribute. So if I get rid of that, then that should go away. Let's see if it does. Why is it not reloading? Okay, so that should go away and nothing renders, right? That's because in order for this to trigger, so if I say console.log just dump all of those out. Let's see if I look at my output here. I don't see any. This is all my service worker stuff from before. I don't see any, I don't see a console log that the attribute changed, right? Or I'm setting the attribute here, but it's not actually changing. Now that could be for a couple different reasons. That could be because I'm trying to pass an object and I'm honestly not sure if you can do that. I'm relatively certain you can do that. But more importantly, note that to get the attribute change callback to fire when an attribute changes, you have to observe the attributes. So just by having a property, that doesn't do it. Just by assigning it to that property doesn't do it. In order for this method to get called, or yeah, this callback to get called, you have to do this. You have to give this list of observed attributes. So these are going to be the names of the attributes. So I think this should do it. So now if I save here and I go back, it did not do it. Why not? So now I don't know why. So let's first start by saying attribute change callback. Contact. Let's just do a simple one. Let's just say title, right? Let's just do a title. Basically going back to the hello world. The hello world thing. So we got title, and whenever the title is changed, let's get rid of this. Let's go back here, and we'll say title equals hello world. We're going back to that hello world example. Let's just get this working. The result must not have attributes. Interesting. So now, huh. I don't know what this error is. So let's, oh, okay. Well, my callback is getting changed. That's cool. Or it is getting executed. That's what that error was. What is going on here? Failed to construct custom element. The result must not have attributes. Interesting. So if I take this off, everything's going to work again, right? No, not even that. Interesting. 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 So let's see. Oh, welcome. I see I've got 5 people viewing right now. It's officially the highest viewers that I've ever had concurrently. Welcome to the stream. If you enjoy it, please tell your friends and definitely please follow. I'm trying to get to my first 10 followers, so you can be one of those first 10 followers. Right now, I'm trying to show web components, and I'm trying to bring it into a React application. So I'm getting very aggressive. I'm jumping straight from like the 100 level, let's make a web component, and just saying like, how do we integrate this web component into React? And I'm having a bunch of problems with that second part right now. Frankly, I'm not really sure what this error is. I have not Googled it just yet because I'm refusing to accept that it is an issue. I feel like it's an issue with my compilation or something like that. So I'm just going to try and restart the application, recompile, and see what happens. Now I've got like 5 different versions. Yeah, okay. So not supported error, failed to construct custom element. Let's Google this and see what happens. Let's say React. So when we use a custom component, constructor for a custom element is not supposed to read or write to its DOM. It doesn't. I changed that. That work needs to be done later, usually in a connected callback. Okay. Nope. So connected callback refers to this, right? So this is, I did it wrong in my first example when I was actually rendering something in the constructor. Apparently you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to do that here. Or I can say this dot shadow root dot inner HTML equals hello world. Let's try that. Now it still doesn't explain why I'm getting this error though. Parameter list call to must be first. Yes, it is. The return statement must not appear anywhere inside the constructor body. The constructor must not use document right. Yeah, no. Elements, attributes, and children must not be inspected. That's fine. The element must not gain any attributes as children. Okay. So maybe that's what I'm violating. Let's go back to this. How do we web components, custom element attributes. How do we add a custom element attribute? Okay. Okay, there we go. So this is what I've been doing. All right. So we got our app drawer extends HTML element. Yep, that's what I'm doing here. We've got our get observed attributes. That's cool. Maybe I had to initialize them to something first. Let's say maybe that's the problem. Let's see. This dot has attribute, set attribute. This dot disabled. Okay. Not really sure why that error is happening though, because I'm never calling my render method. Maybe is it because I have my service? Well, let me remove my service worker. That might be causing some issues with caching or whatever. Let's get rid of all of that. Let me clear my data, reload. Create element. Object.render. That is interesting. Why is this happening? All right. Well, maybe we jump to this a little too soon. Let's comment that out. And let's go back to just doing it up here. My index.html. So let's say contact details. And let's just try and pass the title in. Let's just say Frank Castle. Let's just say display name. Display name, Frank Castle. All right. Let's do that first. So we'll go here. We'll say display name, right? Get rid of the contact. We're not ready for that yet. Well, actually, I'm just going to leave it there as a property because I already have my render down here that references it, but we're not calling that, so that's fine. So I'm just going to display. I'm just going to have this, and then I'm going to say get display name as a property, return this dot get attribute display name. I'm doing this because that's what this just said. well, it's converting it to to a Boolean, but basically it's reading the attribute, right? So I am kind of wrapping this, and so now let's see if this works. Just render. So that still says hello world, right? So that got connected, and then did my custom square element added to the page. I don't even know what that is. Where's that coming from? Custom square element. Oh, am I connected? my copy and paste. All right, so connected is working. Attribute changed callback. Let's see. Let's see if I can this dot display name. Cool. Okay, good. Okay. So now when it's connected, it passes in that attribute. So that attribute is already set. It's set there on the beginning. What happens now if I bring this in? So that works outside of React. What happens if I load it in React now? Okay. That error isn't happening anymore. So that's cool. Not really sure why it is not happening and why it did happen before, but whatever. Let's try and do the same thing. Display name equals Frank Castle. Cool. There we go. That's good. Let me go back and make this a little more HTML-y. Cool. All right. Well, Frank Castle. That's cool. Okay. Let me do this. So let me come back down here and say, let me move this into another method, just like I tried to do before. So I will end this one, and then I will say end this, and then I'll create a new method, render contact details. So here's a new method that returns this and gets the, well, contact equals this dot contact. Okay. So now we've got our styles here, and now I can say then if contact equals null, render, well, let's say div no contact selected, otherwise this dot render contact details. Okay, we've saved that. And we can go back to render, calling this dot render. And is it going to blow up? This is what blew up last time. Is it going to blow up? Okay, not going to blow up. Cool. All right, so no contact selected. Now what happens if I pass in contact? Let's say right, I'm very nervous passing in an actual object because I'm not sure if it works, but hey, let's do it. Selected contact. So we're looking like React here now. Got to look for this, get rid of this one. And instead of, maybe this was my issue that I've got an actual property there. Let's say get contact, return this dot get attribute contact. So this is string. Yeah, this is the problem, right? This is why I'm so worried. Oh, thank you for following. DJ Alman Cruz Jr. DJ Alman Cruz Jr. Sorry for destroying your name. Thank you very much for the follow. You are officially my 4th follower. So awesome. You're number 4. You need a number 4 badge or something. Great. Thank you very much for following. Please tell your friends if you're enjoying it. All right, so yeah, here's why I was so nervous about passing this contact, right? I wasn't really nervous about display name because display name was a string, but when you're passing around attributes to DOM elements, those attributes, and remember we're dealing with DOM elements, right? Attributes on DOM elements are strings. End of story. So I know that you can. I'm not sure how. Pass around. Let me see. Web component object property. Pass object, right? This is what we're really looking for. Handling data with web components. So here's some random blog by somebody I don't know. Right, this is what we want to do, right? We want to pass actual objects. Use attributes. Attributes are the easiest way to pass data, right? That's clearly what we've been doing, right? Passing strings, no problem. Attributes for custom elements are not different from the attributes we already know and love, whereas the part where he says that they are strings. They're going to be strings. Right. So, okay, come on. All right, accessing the attribute. We already know. We've done all this. This is all great. Observing attributes. We've done all that. That's fine. We actually didn't. I didn't show how it changed, but we can do that later. What about complex data? Here's what we're looking at. Okay. Set attribute JSON.stringify. I don't want to do that. Rather ugly. I agree. And so the reason I don't want to do that is like one of the powers of React and other frameworks like Angular is that you can pass references to objects around, right? So you're not incurring the cost of serializing and deserializing, but more importantly, you can actually. Dalek says, "Hello, what are you doing right now?" I'm learning web components. I'm learning web components with you. So I have I went through a workshop at Tech Bash, the Tech Bash conference, about using web components, and so now I'm kind of taking that home and doing it myself. And so what we're looking at right here is the code for my React application, and I'm trying to convert one of those React components into a web component using the web component APIs. And I'm trying to bring it back into my React application, which is the part that is a little hairy at this point. So right now, what I'm doing is I've shown how to pass in regular old attributes, string attributes. That's very easy because strings are easy to pass around. Right now, I'm trying to figure out how to pass around objects. So anyway, we don't want to stringify because for so many reasons, right? We incur that cost of serializing and deserializing, but more importantly, we can't actually refer to that object, right? We want to pass by reference. Dalek, thanks for the follower. You are lucky number 5. Thank you very much for following. Enjoy. I hope you like the stream. So we don't want to serialize and deserialize, but instead we're using properties. Okay. So this is what I'm looking for. Right. So DOM elements are also objects. You can set properties on objects. You can do that with getters and setters. That's cool. And then you get a reference to that instance and then interact with it. Right. Properties and custom elements. So how do I do this? How do I pass a property that looks like an attribute? Not sure that I can. Let's start with this though. All right, so we got this dot items. So let's go ahead and do that. Right. So we've got contact cannot be an attribute because let's do this. I'll leave my static there. So I'm using TypeScript. If you're not using TypeScript, you definitely should. It's really, really awesome. So this has nothing to do with web components. It's just TypeScript typing. So that's awesome. Yeah, high five to you, Dalek. Thank you. So this is just TypeScript. It's just defining the property. And since we're using TypeScript, I can also make this private. Cool. And then I'm going to wrap this, right? So to get the contact, I'm going to return contact, and then to set the contact, I am going to, return this underscore contact. And this dot underscore contact equals contact. All right. So that's a standard getter setter pattern. Again, nothing specific to web components, really just classes and TypeScript. So now we've got that. We've got our property. And I can initialize it to null. Not that that really matters, but we can do that. And now we can set it by getting, what if we just try and set this? What's going to happen here if we try and set this? If we just save this and run, let's see what happens. Is React smart enough to figure it out? No, it's not. So that's not surprising. So in React has things called props, right? And so the way that you pass things around in React is by assigning their props and passing around props. And React kind of handles the idea of they look like attributes, but they're actually properties, and so I'm going to take care of that. When I use in what's effectively an intrinsic element here, it doesn't do that. It doesn't know what that is. So we're kind of out of luck. We're on our own here. So using events, well, I'm not here yet. Okay, so integrate web components with React. And we can say props. All right, let's see what Corey Ryland has to say. I don't know Corey Ryland, but he's a Google developer expert, so that's cool. Let's see. React compatibility. It's a synthetic system. All right. Am I going to have to wrap it? I think I might have to wrap it. Yeah, I don't really have the context of what this is. This is not exactly what I'm looking for. Let's try somebody else. So Robin Werrick, I am not sure who that is. Never heard of them before. They have another drop-down example. And they're assigning objects. Why? How? I'm missing it. All right. Yeah. Yep. Yep. So they are. All right. So apparently in order to... oh, is my stream lagging? I hope not. I'm very sorry if it is. I will have to look into that if it is. All right. So... yeah, so how to use web components in React seems like we're going to have to wrap them just like any other component that we want to interact with. I wonder if there's a library for doing this. React integration. Yeah. Here we go. Right, so web components this is kind of the repository. So this is the webcomponents.org, their community, and apparently they have a React integration library here. So let's see, converts web components into React components so you can use them as first-class citizens. Looks like they don't even really like it. They don't even like what they're doing. We've started a new project to try and make this more opt-in. Interesting. I guess, do I want to look at this? Do I want to look at this? I'm not sure that solves the problem I'm looking for. Maybe. Yeah, so either way, we're going to have to wrap our components. But these make components a little bit easier to wrap, it seems, these libraries. DOM properties. Yeah, cool. So here's how you can assign custom properties. Let's go back to this one, the React integration, see what they're doing here. So this looks like a cool library. Skate.js React integration. Is that what this is? I don't know what Skate.js is, but I guess it's this one. Here's our component, define the component, and then reactify my component. So I guess that is what we are going to be using. There we go. Cool. This is exactly what I'm looking for. Web component properties. When you pass down props to the web component, instead of setting attributes like React normally does for DOM elements, it will set all props as properties on your web component. So this is that line where we actually get a reference to that element and we assign its properties. Let's do this manually. Before we get into bringing in other frameworks and stuff, I'm going to assume what this is doing. We can take a look at what it's doing. Creating React components. Yeah, so it's wrapping the React components, kind of iterating over the props, and then assigning them. Right? That's basically what it's doing. So I think we can do this manually. Let's go ahead and do this manually first. So let's say contact detail. Let me create another. Let me say contact details. WC wrapper. This is getting very a lot of work, and sneak peek of what's going to happen at the end. I'm going to come to the conclusion that creating web components just as like a reusable or a way of developing applications is not cool, right? When you create web components and then bring them into your React application, why wouldn't you just create React components in the first place, right? That's probably the question that most of you are asking now, especially since we're stumbling through all of this, and I'm now going to have to basically write two components, right? So what I'm doing here is export. I'm going to make a function component, contact details, web component. Let's say compact details wrapper. And I think I'm going to have to do use forward ref. I'm not. Oh, I'll hold on to that for a minute. And my wrapper is going to take contact. Oh my goodness, I can't spell. I'm going to declare that property since I'm using TypeScript here. I'm going to say contact details wrapper props. It's going to take a contact. Props. And okay, so in here, I'm going to create a ref. Use ref. If I remember how to do this. And then I am going to return my custom. I'm going to return my custom component. What was it? Contact details. Contact detail, right? Contact details. What is it? I've already forgotten. Contact details. And set my ref equal to the ref. And so this should work. This is my basic wrapper. Here is where I can move that TS ignore that I still don't know how to fix. I will go back and fix this and do it right. But right now, so now in React, we're going to use this wrapper, which is just wrapping this DOM element. So this is what I would do to interact with any underlying DOM element, right? Whether it's a div, an input, or whatever, you're going to write a wrapper. You're going to use ref. This is kind of a standard interop thing to do. And I'll get back to why I'm doing this in a minute. But I'm just going to wire it back up. So now instead of the contact details web component directly, I'm going to use the contact details wrapper. I'm going to pass in contact, selected contact. There we go. Okay, so that's my web component, or that's my React component. I'm going to remove this reference because it's already being imported globally. I mean, I can move it in here, right, just to make sure that my web component is being imported when it's being depended upon. So this should work. So if I just save this, it should render and say no contact selected, right? So we can tell that this is working because I just saved everything and I'm getting to this point where the contact attribute is not null, right? So at this point, I'm passing contact into here. This should be fine. So if I do like console.log, render out that contact. If we look at down here, it's null, null. Oh, I have to select one. There we go. Right, so we have a selected contact there. So we can see that this is working. And let's see, if I do this, it's not going to work. Okay, but here's what did happen. So we got attribute change null. So my attribute changed thing actually triggered here. Why did that happen? Because I updated the React prop, and React ran this method, and initially this was null, right, in the initial render, and then when I selected it, React actually passed this attribute, and that got updated. So let's see what that is real quick. Attribute changed old value, new value. Oh, so let's do a little debugger here and see what happens. Attribute change. What is this new value here? New value, object, object. Right, right. So this was literally what was passed in. So this is the problem that we've kind of been dealing with, right? Is when we pass in attributes as elements, as attributes on the actual DOM element, they get converted to strings. And so I could say this, right? Like this could work. I could say JSON.stringify, right? And now when I save this and reload, if I save this and reload, come on. Takes forever. Let me open a new tab. Yeah, when you reload in the middle of a debug, that's Chrome does not like that. Okay, so now when I change, right, that works. It works in that I serialize something and I could pass it through. So look, let's go back to this real quick. Let's go back to this observed attributes, and I can say, GUI brother 32. GUI brother, thanks for joining. Thanks for following. I appreciate it. You are number 6. We are 60% on our way to 10 followers, first 10 followers. So thank you, and congratulations for being one of my first 10 followers. If you like it, tell your friends. I'd love to get more people on the stream. Cheers to you. Okay. Let me take a step back here, right? So I've kind of jumped forward and said, how do I pass complex objects? We will do that in just a minute. Let me do the thing that I've been saying I don't want to do, which is pass it by string by serializing and deserializing. We can do this, though. So if I say this, let's say when the attribute changed callback. So new value. So name, what was name? Attribute, let me just pass this in. I mean, name's going to be contact, right? But let me remove that debugger line so we don't run into any issues anymore. Okay, so right, so the attribute named is going to be callback. So we can say if name equals, I said callback, contact, then this dot contact equals JSON stringify, or not stringify, parse the new value. And then I think I need to re-render. I'm not really sure. I still have my debugger. I don't want my debugger. Refresh. So check that out. So that worked, right? I should have done that earlier just to show it working. That works. There's no problem with that. Not sure why the display name. Contact display name. Yeah. You know why? You know why that's not working? It's not working because if I go to the definition of this, forget the observable. That's all Malbec stuff. You don't really need to worry about it. But and forget the computed. It doesn't have anything to do with this. Display name is a computed. It's a getter, right? And so when you serialize, this is again is one of these reasons you don't want to serialize. There's so many reasons, but when you stringify, you don't get the display name in there. You don't get computed properties you don't get getters, the value of getters, right? So if I look in here, there is no display name property. Everything else that was a regular property, that got serialized, but the display name didn't because it's a getter. So that's one of the many reasons I don't want to pass by serializing and deserializing. So let me remove this because it's no longer going to work. So that's not what I want to do anymore. So let me go back to my wrapper component, right? I don't want to do this anymore. I want to get a ref. And now that I have my ref, where do I want to do this? Use effect. Sorry if you don't know React and use effect. I'm not really going to explain it right now, but basically this just means whenever the contact gets updated, then execute this logic, this function in here. So now I can say ref.current, and now I can set the property contact equals contact. So here is where I'm passing by reference. This is this is yelling at me because it's possibly undefined, and I think I do need to define it. I don't think it's good enough just to do this. I think I can just pass it in like that. I don't know. We'll see. Could be undefined. I'm just going to ignore that for right now. Well, I guess if ref.current is undefined, is null, then return. And I will add that to my list of things that gets changed. Okay. If ref or ref.current are null, then return. Why are we undefined here? That's fine. Come on. I don't know why I'm getting this error. Object is possibly undefined. It's not going to be undefined. So okay. Thanks, TypeScript. Anyway, sorry for that little detour. Okay. So here I'm getting a reference to the element. So again, this is just kind of basic React. I'm going to get rid of this. This is just basic React. You get a reference when you render a DOM element. You can get a reference to that DOM element. I think by this, we might have to do this. But I think I could just pass the ref in. It's been a little while since I've done a ref. Ultimately, regardless of how we do it, once this ref is set, then the current value of that ref will be the element, this element, right? So once it's rendered, the current value will be the element, and then I can start assigning properties, right? So now I'm actually interacting with the instance of the class itself, right? So I'm actually interacting with these getters and setters, specifically this one, right? So when I set the contact, so I'll set a debugger here, just so we can be totally sure when it actually gets set. And then I'll save everything. This, I think, should work. Yeah, there we go. Okay, contact is null, right? So the first time it passes, the contact is null. Contact is still null. Okay. Okay. What if I do this? Okay. So ref, I might have to Google this. Ref equals X. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. React use ref DOM element. This is like basic React stuff that I'm having a brain fart on right now. All right, so let's see. Use ref null. That's what I have. I have undefined. Yeah, I mean, it should just work. It should just work. Let's make sure we are getting a contact. Let's see how that looks. Oh, no, I don't. I was right the first time, I believe. Just want to pass it in through. Okay, contact updated. No, that's what we expect. That's what we expect. All right, so we're never getting. Oh my God, I'm so stupid. You have to select one. There we go. It's been working this whole time. All right, sorry. We need to select that contact. Cool. All right, so I clicked on a contact. The contact got selected. So that's awesome. Great. So everything worked. Contact updated. We're getting it passed in. Now let's do that real quick. Okay. Oh, yeah, get rid of that debugger because it is working. We just saw it working, right? So we no longer need that debugger. We can go back here. Oh, I just refreshed the page in the middle of a debug point, so that means I'm going to abandon that one. Start over again. Okay. Cool. Setting element contact. Okay. Oh, we knew that was happening because the debugger was getting set. All right, so when we set this, we want to render. Cool. There we go. Awesome. So there it is. And we're right at about the hour and 25-minute mark. So just to kind of, that's exactly what I wanted to do. And I might, if I sound surprised, it's because I am. I didn't actually expect that to work, but eventually it's one of those things you struggle, and you get it. So I tried a bunch of things. So now let's sit back and kind of review everything we just did over the past hour and a half. We looked at, why is my reapper? I just removed those console. We don't need this anymore. These debuggers. Okay, so I looked at the web components. What is a web component, right? So this is a basic web component. It happens to be, I never did quite get this working. Maybe we'll take a couple minutes and see if we can do that. But a web component is nothing more than a class that extends HTML element, and then you can render it or register it as a custom element by defining it with this call, right? So you can create a custom tag. So that's what I did. I did this in TypeScript because I love TypeScript, and I'm in the middle of a Create React application, so I already have TypeScript and everything, and Babel and everything set up in this application. So I completely skipped over all of that. You didn't see any of that, but I just as well. Pretty much all of this code I could have written in pure JavaScript, right, excluding the typings and everything. This is all basically just regular ES6, right, ES 2015, or ES 2016, I don't know, whatever, JavaScript. All of this code, including the extends and everything, outside of the typings, is just regular old JavaScript, so nothing really special there. So I created a custom element. I have a shadow DOM, so everything that I do, all the renderings that I have, I'm rendering to the shadow root. I believe I could probably make all of this a whole lot more efficient rather than continuing to set the inner HTML. I think we can go back and use like templates and stuff. I'm not really sure how to do that. So right now I'm just dealing with rendering text, but templates is probably better. I don't know. Maybe we can check that out in a future session. And then, yeah, I'm rendering it, right? So anytime one of the attributes change, which I don't actually have any attributes defined, so I could probably remove this stuff. But anytime any of the attributes change, we render. And then I've got the contact, which is not an attribute. Let me just remove this so it's not confusing. It's not an attribute. It is a property. It is a property of the instance of this element. So you can't just pass this contact as an attribute, a DOM attribute. You actually have to get an instance and set the property, the contact property of that instance to a value, right? Which we'll call this, which will then trigger a re-render. So that's what's happening there in my HTML element, or sorry, in my my web component, my custom web component. So this is a web component, and then I built a wrapper around it to integrate it with my React application. So first thing I did was import it. So import that element. If it hasn't already been imported, that brings this all in, which the act of importing it also registers it globally, right? And so then I can just use it like any other custom element. I'm ignoring the TypeScript error right now that basically says, hey, I don't know about this. It's not an intrinsic element that I know about. This was my attempt at fixing that, which didn't work. So I commented it out. But it's going to be something like this, which we can probably do either now or a little bit later. And then from there, I render it and I get a ref, right? So the ref is once this renders, I'm going to get that reference to that instance, that actual instance of that DOM element. Once I get that, it's going to be this current object, right? And I can start assigning stuff to it. So I can assign properties to it, objects. I can pass real, whole, full objects to this thing through this method, right? By getting an actual instance of the element and assigning to its properties. So properties can be complex objects, and they can be assigned by reference. Attributes, like this, these have to be strings. DOM attributes are strings. So here's how we can pass a custom object. In the midst of all of that, I also looked at a couple libraries like React Go, or I don't know if that was React Go. What did I look at? Where is it? It was this one maybe? Yeah, React integration. So there's this React integration library that basically is a wrapper that does this for you. You get a ref to the element, and then you can assign properties. So it basically makes it, you can reactify any web component and basically just assign it with props, right? So then you can just use it like this. You use it as a component, and it will understand. It will understand that when you pass an object in as a prop, you actually want to set that as a property like this versus an attribute. So that's that, right? And then we used it. Brought it into my page because now it's just a React component, right? Once we've wrapped it, now it's just a standard React component, and we can interact with it like that, right? So we can pass objects into it by reference, and that object will get passed all the way down into the web component by reference as a complex object. It'll get called in this setter. The setter will assign it, and then it will re-render. So again, I want to take a second to reiterate that I don't know what I'm doing with web components. You've watched me do web components, learn web components. Everything that you've just seen is pretty much the extent of my knowledge of web components. So don't take anything that I've done as actually like the best practice or the right way of doing anything, right? Let's just assume everything I'm doing here is wrong, but it works. So now with all those disclaimers and that explanation, let's get back to this. Let's fix this once and for all, because then I can be pretty happy with this solution. Okay, so now, all right, the error is property context details does not exist on type JSX intrinsic elements. For those of you who were not around an hour ago when I first started talking about this and then gave up. Intrinsic Elements is a type in the React library. So I'm looking at the TypeScript typings right now for React, right? So in the React types, we have these global global types, and in here we have the namespace JSX, and we have intrinsic elements. So these are the list of all of the elements that are available in HTML. And so basically by default, if you oh, nope, sorry, not there. Any element that is not yours, your own, right? A custom element that you've made, or sorry, any React component, any component that you use or element name that you use that isn't a React component that you've defined somewhere, JSX and TypeScript kind of assumes or thinks that it is an intrinsic element, right? And so it looks for it in this type, which the React library has defined every intrinsic element that is available in HTML, right? Div, dialog, label, H1, H2, all of the elements, right? There's hundreds, at least dozens of them. They're all defined right here, and they all have their properties and strong typing and everything. So what this error is saying is this doesn't exist in that type. And so now if I Google this, I need to figure out how to add it to that type, how to tell TypeScript that this is in fact a valid type because I'm adding it, right? So basically, if I go back to my web component, effectively what I'm doing with this call, hold on, let me minimize this. Effectively, what I'm doing with this call right here is I'm adding it to I'm adding my custom element to the global scope, right? It is now a custom element that should be available in this intrinsics list, but it's custom, so I need to define it myself. So that should look something like this. I frankly am not sure why this doesn't work. Yeah. I'm not sure why this doesn't work because it should work. So let's see. Maybe it's because I have to do this. Well, I'm looking at the actual error here. Nope, still an error here. Okay, so I need to define. Yeah, okay, well, yeah, maybe because it's a declaration file. So here, let me add this again. So we'll say contact details.d.ts, and we'll move this over there. And we can even import this. Well, for right now, I'll just make it any. And we'll get rid of it from here. We don't need React in here because it's a web component. Okay. Well, let's see if this works. Let's say contact details. Let's see if this just works like this. No, that'll import it. Let's call it contact deets. Just to see if my type. So I'm just trying to figure out how to wire these typings up here. Yeah, just by the nature that it is in a d.ts file, it should be kind of globally available, and it's not, and I'm not sure why. Declare, what if I do a global? Declare, so here I'm just kind of copying what's up here. So this intrinsic elements is under the namespace JSX. So if I copy this, it should work, but it doesn't. Yeah. All right, I'm going to give this like 2 more minutes because I know most of you are dropping off because this is just not fun. Augmentations, yeah. And if I don't get it, then I will have to look at this. I'm going to have to look at this offline and get back to you. Yeah, because this is not coming up. Yeah. Declare go. This is what should work. This is what should work. And I'm not sure why it's not. So I should be able to delete this file and bring it back in here. Yeah, and just by the nature of importing that, I should also import its the types that it's declaring in here. But it's not. So again, I am looking at a bug report. So maybe find a solution to custom tags. Declare your custom element type like this. All right, well, I'm not worried about that just yet. Whoops. Hey, that worked. Cool. There you go. Okay, great. Awesome. So that worked. A lot of fumbling around, and I honestly have no idea how this is any different than what I did before. In other words, I did this, which should just work. Not sure why it didn't, but hey, whatever. But there we go. There, I guess because I didn't import React, except I definitely did at one point, but that's fine. So there we go. There's the full solution with no ignoring TypeScript, and we actually got a decent amount of typing support here. So we know that this is it's an HTML element with HTML props of HTML element and stuff. And I could, if I did have this like display name, that I could pass as an actual attribute on the DOM element, I could define that here. How would I do that? Let's see. Attributes. Can I do... Is that it? Yep. String, right? So you can add that into your attributes. So what I'm talking about is kind of a mixture of... If you have no idea what I just did here, it's a little bit more of an advanced mixture of TypeScript and React, so don't worry about it. But basically what I'm saying is I can extend these properties and add whatever I want on here. So these are where all my custom properties would be. So yeah, there we go. So that is an example of getting started with... Oh, now I made it required. Now that's an example of getting started with web components and integrating those web components with React. So that's it. I'm going to log off now. We've now been doing this for an hour and 40 minutes or so. I'm getting kind of hungry and thirsty. Thank you very much for joining. Let me switch to my live view here. Thank you very much for joining. For those who just started following me, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. It's a new stream. I'm just getting started. I'm looking for new followers. If you like this, please follow. If you really liked it, then tell your friends about it. Yeah, thank you very much, Gooey Brother 32. Thanks for chatting. Feel free to join me next time. And honestly, next time, jump in with questions, comments, concerns. I would love to make this more interactive and kind of talk about what you want to hear about. So thank you very much. Check out my Twitter. I'm at jchadwick. Not Jess_Chadwick, but at jchadwick on Twitter. For those of you who are following me, you're going to get the alerts on through Twitch when I go live. But for those of you who aren't following me just yet, what's your problem? Go ahead and follow. But check out Twitter. I like to kind of post, when I'm going live. I don't yet have like a set schedule, Monday, Wednesday, Friday or anything, but I'm working on one. I'm trying to figure out what works for me. So right now it's kind of dynamic. This time, Friday morning will probably be pretty standard. But I'm going to try and add a couple more days to that as well that I'm going to be doing on a regular basis. So thank you very much. Hopefully you found it enjoyable, and I'll see you next time. Thanks a lot. See ya.